someone asked Dewey to ask me to speak about the Galuyos and our different enemies. If so, fine. We'll start with the one that we've, always have to deal with until the end of time. Start with Amalek, and we'll get to Elul. We'll find a way. It's just say that we just read, in this week's parasha, the Balaturim says, that the smichos of, lo sishkach to ve'akisavo el oretz is because, that's it's a remez to gimel mitzvahs nitztavu Yisrael, the kisasum l'eretz Yisrael. It's a limnos of melech lachir zashavuk limnos is based on bechira, so it's a mitzvah went into effect. We had to start the process first with Minu Melech and get to Mechiyas Melech with Vaya Kisavo El Oretz. That's what Baal Term says, Smichos HaParshias. But there's another remez that the Sfarim bring, and we'll get into that. And the parsha opens up with the Chiyuv of Bikur, Reishis Priya Adama. And the Sfarim say it's Kenegan Amod. That's called Reishis Goyim Amalek, the one calls it. And we'll get into that, and we'll discuss that. But let's just first discuss this from a halacha point of view. The Shitas Rambam. So the Rambam writes in Parakeh, Hilchos Malachim, Halacha Daled, Mitzvahs Aseh Lachrim Shiva Amim, Shem Achrein Tachrim. So it's the mitzvah of killing out the Shiva Amim. That's the mitzvah Save Achrein Tachrim. V'kol shebo liyodo echem v'lo harago. You got one of them. You got one in a corner, and there's no witnesses. You come, you can kill him. V'lo harago, and you turn down the opportunity. Hareza over beloisa say. Shenema lo sachaya kol neshama. So you transgress a mitzvah lo saseh lo sachaya kol neshama. V'kvar avdu v'avad zichram. So Ram says the mitzvah no longer applies because they've assimilated. We don't know who they are, where they are. They don't exist as a nation anymore. So right afterwards, halacha hey. V'chein mitzvah say la'abed zera Amalek shena timcha zechra Amalek. That's all he says. Mitzvah kill Amalek, says Timcha Amalek, and then he goes into the mitzvah of mitzvah liskar tamid masaroim v'arevaso. So, the poskim are a little bit puzzled. He doesn't say v'kvar ovad zichram that he says, like he says by Shiva Salman, and he also doesn't say this halacha. They say you have one of them that you could take out and you don't, so you're over on a lo say of lo s'chaya kol neshama. One would think you're at least mavatz. There's no such lav. There's no lav of lo sechaya by Amalek, but why don't you mevatel mitzvah saseh of timcha zecher Amalek? Right? It's just some also a mitzvah. Labids are Amalek. Right? So most assume it's what is by one is by the other, and Mistamba he was somech on what he wrote by Shiva Salmin that what's here is there. Yeah, except that's not true. Listen to the Lashon Rambam in Aseh in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. It's Simin Mitzvah Kuf Pei Zayin, which is the mitzvah to kill out the Shiva Salmin. Mitzvah Kuf Pei Zayin. Usol laharok shivas amin ula abdam. Shem Rishon Shavazar. The reason why it's so evil is because they were really the ones who were pushing avodah zarah. Right, killing them out that'll definitely prevent us from learning from them. So now the Ram adds a postscript over here. It's a very important postscript. Now you might think there's not a mitzvah noheges l'doros because they've been wiped out, and the Rambam is really asking a kasha on himself. He has 14 shoroshim at the beginning of Sefer Mitzvahs where he lays out the criteria of what gets counted as a mitzvah. So why am I counting this? This mitzvah no longer applies. So you would think it's eina noheg l'doros, right? V'zeh ki yatzush nigmor ba'agia tachlis u'bilti she'ez toli b'zman yadua le'mor she'en noheg l'doros elahu noheg b'chol davar dar she'tzeh efsharos hadavar ahu. All right, so he doubles down this later, but let's just explain it. that when they said mitzvah hanoheg stars means that there was never a time limit on it. But let's say the mitzvah is to correct a certain circumstance. You've got 6,000 years to do it because then the world goes kaboom, right? So you have call your most olam to get it done, to fix this thing. If you finished early, so you got loy, zariz v'niskar. That's not called that the mitzvah was eina noheges l'daros because you finished the job early. Or because it serves that mitzvah she'eina noheges l'daros is that it was milchatchila, a time limit on the mitzvah. That's why the Rambam says over there in that shurish, we don't count the mitzvahs that were special for Dora Midbar because there was a time limit on them. But if there's not be'etzem a time limit on the mitzvah, just the mitzvah is totally in circumstances, right? But there's no time limit. As long as these circumstances are kol yemei olam, the mitzvah applies. That's not called eina noheges l'daros. And noheges means that was time sensitive milchatchila. But listen to what he adds. B'mesiach lefi tumo. Hatachshov, do you think? Kishiyovad Hashem yis'ala zera moek legamre v'yachriseu ad achariso kamo sheyeh b'mheira b'yameinu kamo sheyivtichanu yis'ala ki mocho emche zecher Amalek. Edo noeg l'daros zeil omer avil noegu b'chol dor v'dor kol shos nitzah mizar moek mitzvah achariso. Says, do you think that when we finally finish the job with Amalek, right, we have to rely on the Riboshim to do it because we don't know who he is. Do you think that when that finally happens, it should be b'mheira b'yameinu, it would be called that mitzvahs Mechiyas because it was Eino noeg l'daros? So it's clear chiluk. These guys avad zichram, but it's still called mitzvah noeg l'daros, right? Because it was never time sensitive. And do you think that when we finally accomplish the objective of killing out Amalek, that then it will also be called eino noeg l'daros? So b'mesiach lefi tumo, right? He says there's a chiluk between Amalek and Shivas Amin. They're kvad avad zichram, right? So show me where Amalek is on the map. What's the chiluk? What's the chiluk? He says there is a chiluk, right? Just he puts the stress on ki mocho emcha. We need the Riboshim to do it because we have a logistical problem, right? That we don't know how to find them, right? So we have to rely on the Avtacha, but it's a mitzvah noeg l'daros, and it should be b'mheira b'yameinu. By Shir Samin Kvar Avad Zichram, they don't exist anymore. What's the difference? Right? So now another thing. So we asked that question. What about the din of if you get into a dark alley, with an Amaleki smaller than you, right? You could take it, right? So by the Shivas Amin, he said if they would still be around and you didn't take advantage, right? So you'd be over on Lo Sechai Kol Neshama. So we asked, what would be the halacha by Amalek if you are, just one-on-one, you and him? So the Rambam actually deals with this in a non-obvious place. At the end of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he has a postscript about which mitzvahs are, Bisman HaBayis only, which ones are Bisman HaZeh, which are women chayav, which women are potter from. So in this postscript, he says like this. Kishetisrakel kol elo mitzvah shekarim, all the mitzvahs that I wrote about. All right, shekarim zechar. Hine tipsa mem mitzvah shem chova ala tzibur lo lechol ish ve'ish. There are some mitzvahs that are on the tzibur, and not for every individual Jew. The chiyuv is on the tzibur, al tzibur. Kigoin binyan beis habchira. It's not the particular chiyuv of any Jew to build the Beis Hamikdash. Hakamas Melech, of course, the Am has to establish king. V'hachrosas zaro shel Amalek. The Mechiyas Amalek is a chiyuv on the tzibur, not an individual chiyuv. It's the right thing. So by Shivas Amin, even an individual, right, an individual one-on-one, you could take him out. You should, right, get a mitzvah and you get a lo saseh if you let him live. And by Amalek, that's not the halacha. Amalek is dafka din by tzibur. So of course, immediately, you should make a few connections, right? So first of all, you get it. Why it goes al zeh seder. You have to first make him a melech, right, to unite us, our national identity, because the din on the tzibur. So we're saying to finalize. Kolosha Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvahs, Yekavet kulo maseinu v'yanhigem. The melech makes us one nation and leads us as a tzibur. So that's why it goes al zeh seder. Limras melech, and then lahachris ar shel Amalek. But now what becomes clear in the Megillah instantly? You did Megillah here? Nikalu Yehudim. It's something very weird. Over and over. First, Esther says, Lech Knoises Kol Yehudim, by the Tainus, and then by the word. It repeats itself over and over and over again. Nikalu Yehudim, Nikalu Yehudim. And the Gemara, so often that the Gemara hopped onto the Lashon, Yud Gimel Zman Kehila Lakol. Grad in Yerushalmi says Yom Muhammad, right? But in the Bavli, Yud Gimel Zman Kehila Lakol. Because Mechiyas is din on the tzibur, and then the Maharal explains this also in his sefer on Purim, the Or Chadash, right? But he goes from a different oifen. But we're going from the Rambam's there because Mechiyas is a tzibur de kadin, and as we're going to explain, it's only shaykh to do mikoch the tzibur kite of Klal Yisrael. We can't do it as individuals, right? So to understand, we're just making points to connect the dots, right? So we read in the parsha, right? Right? Timche zecher Amalek. What do you say? Mikol vecha misaviv. So you would think Amalek bechlal. Mikol vecha misaviv. So where's Amalek? If he's not bechlal, kol vecha misaviv. Right? No, Niflot, I heard from Rav Yochanan's wife, the Rosh Yeshiva of Miami. The Gemara says that Esther first said, "Ish tsar v'oyev, Haman arazeh." So ish tsar v'oyev, she's really pointing at Achashverosh, to a Malach, and moved her finger to point to Haman, and then she chapped, Haman arazeh. What's the remnants in the pasuk? How did Chazal know that? Ish tsar v'oyev. Amalek is not in the klal of Kollel vecha misaviv. It's not part of that klal. So just talking about the other guy in the room, right? Achashverosh. So ish tsar v'oyev, right? Amalek's not bechlal Kollel vecha misaviv. And that was the remnants. That's how you know. It was Haman arazeh. That's the dvar muim mishamra, right? So what is Amalek? He's not bechlal Kollel vecha misaviv, right? All right. So I'm going to ask a different question. So where's he standing? Where's his place on earth? So, I'm standing where I am. Everyone else is around me. So Amalek's not Bichlal Kollel vecha misaviv. Where's Amalek standing? What's his position in reality? He wants to be where we're standing. He wants our spot on the checkerboard. Right? No. So we mentioned before, the Bilam, sees Amalek, says, Reishis Goyim Amalek, V'achoriso Adeove. Right? Reishis. What does that sound like? Right. Reishis V'shul Yisrael Shnikru Reishis. Shner Koriso Hashem Reishis T'vuasa. Right? Am Yisrael is called Reishis. Right? So now, take a look, from Mitzad Zman, the dimension of Zman and Mitzad space, Mitzad Zman and Makom. Right? Kollel vecha misaviv, so where am I standing? In the middle. Right? So, don't want to bring back any memories, bad memories from grammar school, but infinite points on a plane. Right? And a plane you have like at least self points, but only one center. Right? You can't have two centers. They're neither a center. Not this one, not that one. Only one center. Right? How big is the center? Doesn't take up space. Because if it takes up any space, I'll divide it. This part belongs to the top, this part belongs to the bottom. Right? So what? No, Am Yisrael is the center of reality. But the center is a concept. The center doesn't exist in physical reality. The center is an idea. When we say, so now we have the same thing, it's equivalent in Zman, the equivalent in Zman is Reishis. How long is the Reishis? How long does it last? The beginning. How long is the beginning? It doesn't take up time. Because if you take up time, then you'll just cut up, and cut that time length in half, and cut that time length in half. So he's saying, that these things, one is talking in B'chinas Man, one is talking B'chinas Mokom, right? These are concepts. Let's first talk about us. What's nifla about Am Yisrael? Am Yisrael is not just a collection of people. Am Yisrael gives a guf to a concept, right? What's that concept? Well, that concept is a lot of things. By concept I mean branch out to a lot of things. Only one rachis, right? Only one race, like only one center. But the central point is Bishul HaTorish Nikreis Rachis. Right? Am Yisrael just gives a guf, is a merkava, carries that concept. But it's then a concept never dies. And that's the side of Nitzchias Yisrael. Because we're not just a bunch of DNA, right? We are carriers of an eternal concept, right? And that's what it means. What the Zohar means in Parshas Achrei, Gimel Miskashrin Da B'da, Kuchabrichel V'Raisa V'Yisrael, or what we say, on Shabbos Mincha Ata Echad, V'Shimcha Echad, which is talking about the Torah. It's called Shema Shakadosh Baruch Hu, Umi Kam Choiso Goy Echad Ba'aretz. But Echad over here doesn't mean that we're united. It means that singular concept of Echad Ve'ein Sheni, right? Which is Soid Nekudas HaMerkaz, Soid Rashis. So Am Yisrael and the Torah, and it all goes back to the Ribosh in the sense that it's Ritzono Yisparach, V'hu Ritzono Chad, which we're not going to break that down right now. So, and that's why Goy Echad Baretz, because there's only one center, there's only one Rashis. But the one and only, the Am HaNetzach, right? Amalek wants that position. Right? So there's a davar nifla that the Ramchal deals with in his Sefer Kinas Hashem Tzvakas. It says, Vayachos Yoshua es Amalek ves Amo lefi Charav. What's a double lashon? Amalek va'amo. Right? And then immediately after that, already then, there's a Ksovzos Zikor B'Sim Hashem Ki Mocho Emches Zecher Amalek. Already from then, we start talking about this concept of Zecher Amalek. By Shiva, kill the Shiva Salman. Right? And from there on, it's Zecher Amalek. Right? Says the Ramchal. The Ramchal explains it. Right? That this milchama, without getting into the technicalities of why we had to have Moshe with the hands up and Yoshua lefi Chorev, right? But let's just talk about the result. The result was dual. Amalek ves Amo. Amalek is a concept, right? And it was also a people that aligned themselves with the concept, right? And both were weakened. Now the people more weakened than the concept, right? Because from that point they're on their way down, right? They research here, research there, but they've disappeared. They had already disappeared as a nation before the whole story of Purim. Haman carried a regular Persian passport, right? Unless he got in through the southern border, right? Right. And, right, they didn't exist as a nation anymore. But there was Amalek ves Amos, duality. They are our evil twin, in the sense that they want to have, and unfortunately they do have, a conceptual existence, and that's why I called Zecher Amalek. They're a concept, and immediately from after already the first Milchama, the main danger is not the Am. The main danger is the Zecher Amalek. Right? So now, so going back to what Bilam says, Rashis Goyim Amalek. Well, it could, because it's a mind virus, as we're going to explain. It could slip from. I'm about to explain that. It could go from nation to nation.
How did Shaul plan on killing Amalek?
No, if the Am does it with a Melech, there would have been the Siyata D'Shmai. That's why it has to be all Klal Yisrael. It has to be the Koach of Am Yisrael that ties directly back to the Kuras HaReishis, which is only Nizgal in our nationhood. Right? It has to be our Reishis versus their Reishis, not as individuals. Right? But that's the Havamina that could succeed was he was a Melech. Right? And even in Purim, we didn't succeed totally because we didn't have a Melech, but there was. In the words of Ramchal, also in Kirshem's focus in a different entry, Esther HaMalka was the Nakuda of Malchus. And she was the one who said, Lech Knossos Kol HaYehudim. Right? And that's beside Vayom HaShlishi Vatil Bash Esther Malchus. Said more love Ruach HaKodesh. So she became a Merkava for the Midah of Malchus, but on a temporary basis that worked, the Fisha, and opened up the portal of Purim, but there's still work to be done. But I want to get to this point that, so Bilam calls it Reishis Goyim, the head of all nations, right? That, this is another type of evil twinship that they have with us. We're supposed to be Or La'amim, V'ochu Goyim La'orech, La'asid Lavo, right? Everyone's going to follow us. There's only going to be one nation, La'asid Lavo. It's only going to be the Jewish nation, right? It's a Ramchal in the Derech Hashem, Chelik Sheni Perak Ravi. So it's a Geshmak of Perak. You don't see racism like this in our literature anymore. Right, talking about Yisrael versus Umasan, it's good stuff. Right, in our current society, we can't say that stuff that's there. But he says an amazing thing that in Olam Haba, so Chasidei Umasan yesh lehem chelek Olam Haba. Right, so it's not just that it won't be the same. Of course, it won't be the same. You can't give the same schar for Sheva mitzvahs like you give for Taryag mitzvahs, right? But they don't have a Mechiyas there. There's only one Am in Olam Haba, us. So he says they're begeder levush. We wear them. It's like you wear an Armani suit. If you're good, you'll get Armani, right? It'll be on you, right? If you're so, now you get the Chinese guy that did the knockoff, right? No, but it's a davar nifla he's burning, right? That he calls it. That's his much. It's because there's no two nations in Olam Haba, right? We get down to sort of mi kamachizol goy echad ba'aretz. There's only one nation that was meant to be, and that's us, right? Right. So but why do we wear clothes? Because of Chet Adam Marishan, and that's where they came from, and we're going to get to that in a second, right? Tighten the connection. But he's Reishis Goyim, head of nations, right? But also means, just like we have to be Or L'Goyim and teach them the Torah as it applies to them. Amalek has a parallel role. He gets into the head of nations. He gets into their head. Right? So it's a frightening thing, right? So now, example, Haman. He got into Achashverosh's head in 2 lines, right? And incited a whole nation, right, for genocide. Right? And that's and Amalek could shapeshift and get into the head of any given nation. Right? So, in that door, right? So Paras and Madai, they were followers of Amalek. He got into their head. It's Reishis Goyim, right? And more recently, we had the Nazis, right? And it was mamish that way. Hitler got into their head, right? The people don't say how a man with just his, his speeches, right? Got into, right? They get into the skull. It's Zecher Amalek. They get into the head. It's a Zecher. And now it's, no shortage of people that, it's just, Amalek's in their head. Right? He has a conceptual existence. And that's what sets him apart from the other Umasayla, right? So the Shiva Amamin, they're just a bunch of bad guys. They're not carriers of a concept. They're a bunch of bad guys, Midas Mushchasos, right? So they're just a bunch of bad guys. It's a bunch of people. It's a quantity of bad guys, right? Quantity of bad guys, right? So if I kill one of them, there's less of them. I kill one of them, another one of them, there's even less of them. Amalek, it's all or nothing. They're a concept. You leave the concept going. You leave Zecher Amalek, right, like Shaul did. It could go, that virus could go and just infest a whole other nation. Right? They could come and put themselves in the head of a whole other Am. The Reishis Goyim. The difference is that Achariso Adeovet, right? They're not going to last, right? Baruch Shem. But they will last as long as there is evil itself in the world. That's Milchama Hashem Ba'amalek Midor Dor. Right? As long as there's evil in the world. So that is Lashon Midor Dor. Right? So that's it's that's what the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Daf Hey. Right? So Bo Nachzik Tova Lavasenu. Shil Molech Chatu Anu Kamishalo Banu Lo'ilam. What gives us any what makes us important is that there's still work to be done. right? That our others didn't finish. They chatu and they made work, and that's what we need, The duras to be metaking, right? For what was left undone. Now, where's Amalek Shorish? He's a concept, evil concept. Where's the evil concept come from? Where's the origin of all evil concepts? It's hadas. It's hadas, right? Das. It's a das. Hama minatara minayin, says Gemara in Chulin Daf Kuf Lamed Tes. Hama minatara minayin hamina eitz. That's where they come from, right? They must come from chet eitz hadas, but they come from it's a das. Hamina eitz, right? It brought down that type of das, the type of thinking, the type of concept into the world. That's their point of origin, right? And because of that, that's why we need all the duras that connected. This obviously we're the biggest apikorsus, right? Of the chet etzadas is that there's tov and ra as if they're of equal weight, of equal existence. When that's not true, one is emes and one is sheker, right? But tfis of tov and ra is a reality, right? They're equally. That's what the tfis of das tov, you know them as being of equally weighted, equally real, right? And that's what gives the Pesach for Amalek. The fake now wants to pass itself off as real, and it try to pass off as central. So now, what does it say? So now, Akash was not echad anymore. So what does it say after Chet Adam Marishan? Right? Kotes v'dardar tatzmiach lach. Right? So kotes. The difference in gematria between echad and acher is how much? What? 196. Gematria kotes. Kotes. Right? Right? So coats, and that's exactly what you have to do to the Dalid. Knock off the coats from the back, and it looks like a resh. Knock off that coats from the back. And echad becomes acher. It's the coats. And that's vidardar. So aside from all the chisronis in the bria, but that word, we're dal, varash, dalid resh, dar, but that's why to supplement for the coats vidardar tatzech, we need, lidor vador, no delacha, to admit that the Rebbe Shalom's ain't no milvado. Lidor vador, no delacha. And that's why Milchamel Hashem ba'amalek midor, door. We have to supplement the echad, the aleph, that is missing. Kotes vidardar tatzmiela. Got to get rid of the kotes, replace it with an aleph, and that's why Mechiyas goes in Chodesh Adar. Right? But to explain this more, right? So so Amalek is a concept, and Amalek can shapeshift, and it's the concept of Knesset Yisrael. It's a concept. Knesset Yisrael is the Nakuda of Rashis, right? That's what the meat of Malchus is, right? The meat of Knesset Yisrael. Right, me, you, we're not racist. Am Yisrael as a cloud, we're get to the shorish that our inner shorish. That's the race. That's why you need only the cloud could take out Amalek. Right? So so now going back to the Chodesh Adar. It wasn't always that way. Right? So when Haman threw the lots, right? Was he wrong? Pashas, he was right. Listen, he said, let's leave the fish out of this, right? But the other thing, he said Moshe Rabbeinu died in that month, right? So what a shaita, Moshe Rabbeinu was born. Who cares? Everything goes off Basar Asaf. He died. Ultimately, he died. Right? Who cares? He was born 120 years earlier. He was born then. At the time, right? At the time, Haman's lots were right. And that's what we said in the Asheni. Asher pur Haman nehefach lepurenu. Right? That's why it's called Purim, Hashem Apur. Right? Right? The lots were not wrong. Right? We just flipped them. Right? Because we we converted, without, and it's first in the Megillah, V'achodesh, Ashedefa me'evel simcha, right? V'achodesh, right? So I Mishenichnas Adar, Marbim Simcha. Who cares? Mishenichnas Adar. Purim's 2 weeks later, because we changed the whole mazel of the whole month, right? We reversed it. Now of course, reversing it, doesn't, automatically dispel the evil, right? It's still there, but we were Megala the Tov, and so Pur was Pur, just the bad. And we turned Pur into Purim. Purim al Shem Pur, and Pur, he had just one side of it, right? We flipped it, brought out the good side also, but the bad side, unfortunately, still exists at lost level. We flipped the month, right? And now who flipped the month? We flipped the month. And that's why, Mishenichnas Adar month, so as soon as that mazel sets in. And why? Because we did it. Because really, the Fiyah Seder, the Maracha, the way things were wired up in reality, it was really a bad month for us at that time. It's really furthest away from Nisan. And Moshe Rabbeinu died then, right? But then we flipped it that, we'll look at it like this. Look at time as a loop. Flip, v'nafochu, that goes back to the beginning, leads back into Nisan. Okay? All right, so now, in that same member of Chazal, there's 2 months that are mentioned in the same breath. Kashem shem mishenichnas av mematim b'simcha, kach mishenichnas adar marbim b'simcha. Chazal coined it in the exact same sentence. My high. Right? Because it's an amazing thing. All right, in Lashon HaKodesh, here's my Rebbe, Moshe Shapira, told us, right? In Lashon HaKodesh, when you double the letter at the end of a word, it implies smallness, right? Now that's probably the Pashtan word Elul, right? We're making fun, little God, right? Like katana, small, tantan is very small, right? Right. Many examples of this. Okay? So lefi that yesod and dipdok. Right, so if Nisan is Chodesh HaAviv, what does that mean? Little Av. The original Seder, right, of where the Rebbe wired up the world, indeed Adar was not exactly our best month, furthest away from Nisan, right? But also Av was supposed to be our best month. To make Nisan look small by comparison. Right? Just imagine, simple. The Meraglim would have come back and only said good about Eretz Yisrael. Would have gone in the next day. Right? And it would have been Binyan HaBeis HaMikdash with Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Like it'll be lost at level. Right? So it comes out, so now Av, is a bad month because of us. We did that. So what we did Lara by Av, and we switched the whole mazel of the month. That's why Mishenichnas Av b'matim b'simcha. Right? And Ada Yom Hazeh, you have to go to court, you push it off. Right? You don't go during that month, you have to go during Adar. Right? The damage that we did to Av, right, is the Havdil, Meruba Mida Tov, is the tikkun that we did for Adar. In both cases, the mazel is because of us. That's why Kishem Shem Mishin Echnas Av Mematim B'Simcha, Mishin Echnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. Right? So going back to Nisan, Chodesh HaAviv, right? So the Zohar says, Tikkun Zohar, Aviv, Aleph Beis, Yashar, right? Or it's an order from Aleph to Beis to Gimel. That's called Or Yashar, which, Aleph from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Echad down to Beis to Bereshis, and the whole cycle, that whole part of the calendar, right, from Nisan until Tishrei, right? Of course, if you live in the northern hemisphere, right? It's it's when the days are long, when there's a lot of ore, right? And everything is from top down. The Rebbe Shem took us out from Mitzrayim, Isusa de Eila, and then Matan Torah, from top down, right? And it was only supposed to be getting better and better and better, and Av would be the Spitz, right? We reached like a real high point in Av, right? Right, but then what we did, and we ruined the whole thing, right? So Tammuz and Av were supposed to be like days like Lasu Level. They'll be Yemei Simcha, and that's why it was meant to be wired up originally. We ruined everything, right? But I was saying it. Right. So now the Hanhaga shifts, right? Tishrei, so the Zohar says, Tuf Shin Reish, bottom up, right? Right. It was also supposed to be the Ribosh would be mashpia, and we'd just be makabel and absorb it, and that's why Sukkot would be Chaga Osif, Sukkot, we always think about it as the first Chag. It's not. It's in the Seder of Shoshua. It's the last one. Chag Osif is that it would be Klitasa Iris. Everything at the Ribosh is mashpia, all the way from Nisa. It's the final Vasafta Tok Beisecha. You mamish would absorb it, just all that, and then we messed it up in the middle. And now we have to rebuild, but it's up to us. Now we're going bottom up. You got to fix. It's Rusa dilatata. It's got to start with you. Right? And that's what it starts. We start by being Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? On Rosh Hashanah, we're Mamlechet. Right? And then on Yom Kippur, we do tshuva. Right? It's all up to us. Right, you got to go bottom up because we ruined the whole malach of top down. So now we have to build. The tzaddik goes yashar. The Baal Tshuva has to bounce back. Right. So now take a look. What Adar, the parallel between Adar and Elul. So Adar, because of the Tshuva me'ava that we did, so the whole mahalach of Tishrei, which is a mahalach where bottom up, and that's why Tishrei, ushers in a shift in seasons. That now the nights get longer, right? The nights get longer, and it's a zman of Hester Panim. All the Yom Tovim Doraisa are on the light side of this calendar, right? Now, what do we have on this side of the calendar? The Yom Tovim Dorabanim that we made, Chanukah, Purim, as Sfas Emes writes, it's in the Likutim, right? That what's missing, so we know that it's going mamash in reverse order, right? Because we have Shavuos, Sukkot, right, and now Hanukkah is connected to it. Connected Parei Chag, Shitav Beishamai. Well, why you go either? Connected Parei Chag, Sukkot. Purim, Hadar Kiblua B'Mei Achashverosh, connected Shavuos, right? It's a tikkun for Kollel Har Gigas. So we're going in reverse order. We're going bottom up. So last in, first out. Right? So Hanukkah, connected Sukkot, Purim, connected Shavuos, right? What's missing is the Yom Tov D'Rabbanan. That's connected Pesach, Zok Sas Emes. That's coming. That's going to be the Chag D'Rabbanan of Yemos HaMashiach. The Yom Tov of the coming of Mashiach will be the D'Rabbanan of Pesach. Our Chag Agula. That's what it writes. Right? But I'll call upon him in reversing the process. So let's just go back to Adar. Right? That Mikach, the Tshuva Me'ava that we did, we reversed it. That really, if you think of time as a straight line, so Adar is the furthest away from Nisan. Right? And we looped it. We caused it to be a loop that, look at Adar not as the furthest away from Nisan, but leading back into Nisan. Right? So, so Esther Minator Minayin, Vanochi Haster Esther Panai, it's the spitz of the Hanhoga of Esther Panim that gets ushered in Tishrei. You're bottom up. Right? Right? But but because of the tshuva that we did, we converted it. So it's a month. It's a transitional month that switches from Hanhoga of Hester Panim to Hanhoga of Horus Panim. Leads into Nisan, what Rebbe Shalom was goyel us with Nisim Niglin, as opposed to the Nisim Nistorim of Hanukkah and Purim. Right? We that it leads into there. Right? The Sod, what Gemara says in Brachas, Daf Yud Zayin, Rebbe Shalom Ritzayin Lasos Ritzoncha Mi Ma'akev Saor Shebi Isa v'Shibud Malchias. Right? So on Purim was a shtickle tikkun for Shibud Malchias, that aspect of the Ra. Right? Push back against the goyim that were oppressing us, and therefore we come to Pesach and we're mevayer the Saor Shebi Isa. Right? This are comments. Shem says Yetzar. So Adar was to flip things, back. It's a transitional month. Right, to help us get back on track, right? Get back on track. We flip, from Hester Panim, we go from Elchas to Hester Panai, right? We're going there to the breakthrough. It's the turnaround. It's as if Moshe. Don't look as if Moshe Rabbeinu died. It's not look as if he was born. And we go back into the whole half of the calendar. That's all Schus Shel Moshe, Gulas Mitzrayim, the Matan Torah, right? Adar is the same thing. And this, in fact, Elul performs a very, very similar function. What Adar is to get us to Nisan is what Elul is to get us to the Tikkun, that the rebuilding that we do in Tishrei. Like I said, we messed up, right? So now it would say, so we got to work bottom up, we got to, but we got to reverse the flow. We're headed down, we're down. How do we, flip it? Where was Rebashim Kovea the idea that it's possible to go bottom up? Right? The big yesod of, we say it's Nikva Yemei Rotzen, because that was the day when Kosh says, take stone from earth, rock bottom, bring them to Shamayim. Right? Elul was Kovea, the possibility of going bottom up. What we do in Tishrei, going bottom up, we're going to go back, we're going to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're going to go back, we're going to do tshuva, and we're going to climb even further. We go from being Mamlechim to Lifnei Hashem Titaru to Usmachtem Lifnei Hashem Elokeichem. That's the continuum that we go through in Tishrei. But how is it all possible? Right? Take earthly stone, and you could chisel at it, and you could raise it up to Shamayim. That was what Moshe Rabbeinu did, was kovea the precedent of Isrusa Dilatata. It's possible. And that way you may Elul facilitate the tikkun of Tishrei, Tafshin Reish. We're going to really go bottom up. We can do it. Right? But it involves psolacha. So Sefer Yetzirah says on the, regarding the mazel of Chodesh Elul, Himlich Ois Yud B'Maisa. We'll put the Ois Yud in the koach of Maisa. And the guy in his Pirush on Sefer Yetzirah says, that's that scene of, what's the Ois Yud about? Psolacha. That's the Pirush HaGoyin. Right, so what's the pshat? Right? Ois Yud is Al Shem HaMachshava. Rashi, said, in Oz Yoshir Moshe. Rashi's first pshat before he gets the second pshat of Rams of Tchias Beis. First, Hayud al Shem HaMachshava. Ola Belibo Sheyoshiv Yoshiv, and he brings a few rayas that the Yud is al Shem HaMachshava. Right? We mentioned the Gemara in Brachas before. Ritzonenu lasos ritzoncha. Mi ma'akev. Sor shebisa v'shibud malchias. Right? The Yetzirah is in the middle, and Kayador, the Yetzirah is a parallel Mechiyas to Amalek. Amalek is the Am of the Yetzirah. Right? Yetzirah is a concept. Amalek is a carrier of that concept. And that's what makes him so lethal. That's what gives him kiviyachol, a eternal existence, chas v'shalom, that could compete with ours. Right? So he's ma'akev between Ritzonenu and the Maisa. Ritzonenu lasos, he's ma'akev. But we have to overcome the gap and get the Ois Yud, the machshava, into the Maisa. Get the machshava into the mice. That's the gap that has to be overcome, right? And that's what we do. And zok the goyin psolacha, right? What are the luchas? Right? We should have explained this. So we're coming to a close, right? In the mahalach of bottom up, it's still not the same. We didn't yet make the full tikkun, because the luchas rishonos that went top down, everything came from Shemayim. Luchas and the ksav equally came from Shemayim. Luchas ma'isa elokim meima. And it was connected nas, and you could be magdim nas initial, because there's no gap between the rotzen and the maisa by luchas rishonos. That's why the luchas that represent the heart. What do you do with luchas? It's not a kosher sefer Torah. What do you do with this stuff? Right. What is luchas? So I heard again from my Rebbe Moshe Rabbeinu, Zecher Tzaddik Kodesh Livracha, is a besod kosvei mal luchas libecha. The luchas represented the heart of Klal Yisrael. It was a Mechiyas that we had divrei Torah chorus aluchos libeinu, that and that matzav, our guf was like in a perfect continuum with our rotzen. There was no gap, and that's why the luchas are ma'aseh elokim. The heart was totally pure. There was no Yetzirah in the middle. Right? The luchas represent the heart, and he's saying zeh lama mitzarim otam kacha b'tzara idiotic shalev. Some idiotic picture, because there's no shita that actually looked like that. They want to turn its minhag Yisrael Kodesh, nothing to do with that Italian guy, right? That's right. It's minhag Yisrael Zayalfnei Italki, right? We draw it like that because we teach our kids to draw them like that to look like a heart. That's what the luchas are. They represent the collective heart of Am Yisrael. Right? So you see that this heart of stone that we have, because we have the Yetzer, because we have Amalek inside of us, and you could chisel at it. It's shaykh, but you have to do psolacha, right? You want to judge, you have to condition yourself, right? And that's the avod of Elul. The Baal Turim says, Ram Selo, Umashal Kecha Es Levavcha Ve'es Levav. Ikra Chasam Es Ever. Where's the Umal? All right. Es Levavcha Ve'es Levav. No. Because during Elul is when these luchas were in Shemaim being chiseled at. Right? And connected that with chiseling away at our heart. Yes, we could have Michtav Elkim Chorus, even on our heart of stone, right? But it's work. We're chiseling. Got to chisel away, right? Chisel away, but you're chiseling away at the heart. What we're doing during Elul is building our GPS, our guidance system. You can't go into Rosh Hashanah and be Mamlech HaKadosh and seriously mean it if you didn't work on Elul at chiseling away at your heart of stone to make it into Bechinas Luchas, to be Makabel O Malchusa. Right? So just in Elul, the Luchas were in Shemayim being chiseled at. Right? And it started, but Moshe Rabbeinu had to start. Psalacha, you start. You chisel first. That's B'Yisrusa Delatata. Moshe Rabbeinu had to chisel first, B'Shem Kol Yisrael, and then bring it to Shemaim, and the Riboshim was Goymer. Right? That Riboshim, it helps. Abola Tire Messiah also. Right? Abola Tire Messiah. But that's the Avod of Elul. We're building the heart. Right? We're carving away at the Luchas that has been adulterated because of the Kilkum that we made. Because if we don't align our heart of stone to be B'Chinas Luchas that could be Makabel, the Michtav Elokim, nothing's going to work on Rosh Hashanah. Nothing's going to work on Yom Kippur because you don't have a cart that's capable of being Makabel. So this is what we do during the month of Elul. We got to get our bearings. Got to make sure our heart is in the right place, right? That it's Mukhan to be chiseled upon, the Michtav Elokim that comes in full actuality. Will be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on Rosh Hashanah, and will be Chos B'Chor Chel, B'Zol Gula Amitzis, B'Mher B'Yameinu. Thank you very much.